Mingalawa and welcome to My Radio's Myanmar Today. I'm Michelle with the recent news and reports from around Myanmar. Thoracisin got the latest report on 70 regular sections of Second Pyithu Hluttaw concludes with questions, proposals, bills and reports. Yenai, Bobotain, Someao, and Thoracisin will give us all the details on sellers from Danyingone Wholesale Market suffer from impacts of difficult freight transport. Swimmen also have the story on Myanmar Railway places special attention to commodity flow as express and circular services reduced. David has the full story on Waterway becomes main focus to avoid storage of goods amid COVID-19. All of these reports will be coming up on Myanmar Today. But for now, let's take a look at what's happening in local news. Ministry of Commerce organizes a coordination meeting on plans for price stability and smooth flow of goods during the restriction period of COVID-19, Fire Zone application on Monday afternoon. During the meeting, Union Minister for Commerce Dr. Danyingone said that Myanmar successfully overcame the first wave of COVID-19, but the second wave had severely hit Myanmar. The citizens, the union government, regional governments, and volunteers are taking collaborative efforts to respond to the second wave of COVID-19. The Deputy Minister for Commerce said that all stakeholders need to take collaborative efforts to maintain the supply chain, to continue flow of goods despite travel restrictions, and to prevent storage of medicines. The Naypyidaw Council member explained about health examinations and opening of check gates in accordance with instructions given by National Level Central Committee on Prevention, Control and Treatment of COVID-19. The Yangon mayor explained about arrangements for price stability and making flow of goods effective. The Myanmar Construction Entrepreneurs Federation is expanding facilities at the COVID-19 Medical Center in the compound of Central Institute of Civil Service Lower Myanmar of Paungji Village in Legu Township, Yangon. The chairman of MCEF said that the expansions of facility began after the meeting between departmental officials and the construction entrepreneurs on 1st September as the number of COVID-19 confirmed cases is increasing in Yangon region. Since 10th September, some patients have received medical treatments at the new facilities. The General Secretary of MCEF said that the COVID-19 Medical Center will be used for only the patients with critical and serious health conditions due to the limited capacity of resources for medical workers and volunteers at the center, while positive patients will be kept at the quarantine centers. The Ministry of Construction has set up 4 units of modular house for medical doctors and health workers at the COVID-19 Medical Center in Paungji, and construction works for additional 4 units of such houses are underway there. The tracks coming from Yangon will not be allowed to enter downtown Magway, and it has arranged for loading and uploading the goods at the temporary bus stop station that is open at Majikan Village High School branch in Magway, according to Magway Region Private Bus Line Supervisory Committee. The running of bus line outside Magway region has been suspended as of 14 September, and arrangements have been made for temporary bus stop station in order not to halt commodity flow and to prevent from the spread of the disease. The temporary bus stop station has been open starting 12 September evening, and there are around 40 tracks coming to Magway up to 14 September morning. The local drivers and their followers will be put into 14-day quarantine, and then they're allowed to enter the downtown. The local bus line in the regions are not restricted, and it is making supervisions to run them in line with the COVID-19 rules and regulations, according to the Private Bus Line Supervisory Committee. And that's all with the local news. Now we'll move on to our first report. The Second Pyithu Hluttaw 17th regular session came to an end after holding 12 meetings, during which questions were raised and responded, bills discussed and approved, proposals submitted, and report and research paper presented. The Speaker of Pyithu Hluttaw urged the Hluttaw representatives to compete in the coming general election in a fair and legal means.
The 17th regular session of Second Pyithu Hluttaw concluded with 12 meetings held from 13 July to 27 August. At the meetings, 107 asterisk mark questions were raised by the Hluttaw representatives, including the question on Myanmar Police Act. On the 10th day of 17th regular session held on 20th August, Hluttaw Representative U Aung Chun Khai from Ye constituency raised a question concerning the amendment of current Police Act to be in accord with the modern age, because the current act was enacted before the independence time. And Major General Sotenai, Deputy Minister for Home Affairs, responded to the question.
Yangon Police Act was enacted in 1899 and Police Act was enacted in 1945. The provisions in the Act are generally about police force management, precautions and details for stability of discipline in police force. Although these provisions have weaknesses for the current time, Myanmar police force are working in line with the provisions of police manual, existing laws and regulations and orders while serving the duty, and they have to follow the 70 ethics of police in order to achieve successful performance. Some provisions of the police manual are under the process of amendment. Moreover, the necessary bylaws have to be developed, which we are working on. Since it takes time to amend a law, we are currently developing the Bill on Police Act in order to be harmony with our vision and will continue for approval.
Throughout the 17th regular session of Second Pyithu Hluttaw, discussions centered on 20 bills and 8 bills were approved. During the meeting, 5 Hluttaw representatives from Tamil made commitment. The duration of Hluttaw Capacity Building Advisory Group was increased. 5 Hluttaw representatives from Tamil were assigned as the committee members and 3 were assigned as observers in the committees. A report on management for procurement and distribution of antibiotics by Health and Sports Promotion Committee was approved. 8 individual questions of the representatives for research were responded and 17 research papers were distributed. On the last day of the session, the Speaker of Pyithu Hluttaw, U Komnyat, delivered the concluding speech, encouraging the Hluttaw representatives to compete fairly and legally in the coming general election and to keep working for the goodwill of the citizens and the country.
မိမိတို့နိုင်ငံဟာ2020ပြည့်နှစ်ပါတီစုံဒီမိုကရေစီအထွေထွေရွေးကောက်ပွဲကြီးကိုမကြာမီကာလအတွင်းမှာကျင်းပတော့မှာဖြစ်
Our country is going to organize multi-party democratic general election soon. Election is the root of democracy. In order to strengthen the foundation of democracy, I urge the eligible voters to definitely vote in the election. The Hluttaw representatives are also requested to compete from the respective constituencies in fair and legal means and keep working for the benefits of the citizens and the country. I wish you to have smooth way back to your constituencies, be the respectful representatives by the citizens, and be responsive to protect the interests of the country and the citizens.
Amid the Second Pyithu Hluttaw 17th regular session, 107 asterisk mark questions were raised and responded, and 228 questions without asterisk were answered. 13 proposals, including 1 important proposal, were submitted, out of which 5 proposals were approved, 3 were recorded, 1 was rejected, and 4 were remained to discuss.
That's a report on 17th regular section of Second Pyithu Hluttaw concludes with questions, proposals, bills, and reports. Because of the restrictions imposed on Yangon region, including the ban on going in and out of the region and time-limited ban on going out at night. There have been some delays and difficulties occur in freight transport to Danyingone Market, one of the main markets of Yangon. Moreover, the fresh goods sellers are also facing with the decrease in sales during the resurgence period when comparing with the earlier period.
The Danyingone Wholesale Market, located in Insane Township, is one of the two main markets of Yangon, distributing fresh fruits, vegetables, crops, flowers, and dry consumer goods to the whole region. It is built on 85 acres of land, with over 1,600 sellers are working at over 3,800 booths out of available 5,600 booths. Because of faster spread of COVID-19 in Yangon, stay-at-home order was imposed on some townships of Yangon, and restrictions are released, including banning going in and out of the region. The restrictions as to the COVID-19 spread lead to the difficulties in freight transport to the Danyingone Market, and additionally, the sellers are facing with drop in demand. Uzote, owner of Myanmar Fresh Goods Shop from the Danyingone Market, said.
Because of the ban on going out at night from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. in the morning, we have the problems of freight transports, so there have been delays. Moreover, to deliver the goods in time, the farmers or producers have to do the production a day ahead, which leads to quality drop in freshness. Normally, I had sold 3,000 visits of chili per day and above 1,500 to 2,000 visits for tomato, but the sales rate of the commodity is dramatically dropping down. The customers only buy the basics foods and vegetables that are essential for the daily meal. I'm not the only one who was facing the drop of sales rate, but the rest of the sellers are too. Despite the difficulties, the sellers cannot stop working for the living. We cannot claim the profits from our goods. During the beginning period of the COVID-19, the sales rate dropped about 20%, and now, during the resurgence period, the sales rate drops about 50%.
The fruits, vegetables, and other fresh goods are transported from different parts of the country. Some of the wholesalers contract with the supplying companies, but some invest in crops farming by giving capital to the farmers, and they are losing profit in their investment. In addition to the drop in sales, the sellers are also facing with losses in goods because of delay in freight transport. Udemaso, a seller of the Danyingone Market, said.
The sale is not as good now as before, especially because of difficulties in transport, dropping about two-thirds. Moreover, the night market is also closed. Because of the delay in transport, some fresh goods are damaged on the way. Previously, all the goods were fresh and sold out as soon as they arrived. Now, we have to select the damaged ones as waste. For example, out of 10 pieces of chili, over 1 piece is wasted.
The price of the fresh goods drops as long as they are in stock because of poorer quality. The decrease in customers also leads to the decrease in price. However, on the other hand, the more difficult the freight transport is, the higher in the price of the supplies are. Kosonai, fresh fruit seller from the Danyingone Market, said.
The sale rate is dropping during the resurgence period more than the earlier period. Especially because of difficulties in transport, we cannot be provided with the necessary crops. Since the trucks from other regions and states cannot come here easily, the price of the supply is getting high, but here we cannot resell with higher price. Before the outbreak, we got nearly 4 lakhs to 5 lakhs as a profit, but now it's really hard to find nearly 2 lakhs.
The Danyingone Market and the Myanmar Market are the main sources of consumer goods in Yangon, and the authorities are working to continue running the markets. Despite the difficulties, the sellers are working hard to cover the daily expenses and help support their living.
That's a report on sellers from the Danyingone Wholesale Market suffer from impacts of difficult freight transport. Stay with us as we bring you more reports on Myanmar Today. As the consequences of COVID-19 pandemic crisis, which rapidly affect throughout the country, Myanmar Railway is currently implementing express and circular trains plying from Yangon region to other states and regions with lesser number of trains. It was reported by Swayman.
For ensuring smooth flow of commodities, Myanmar Railways is implementing express and circular trains plying from Yangon region to other states and regions with lesser numbers of trains. This is the consequences of COVID-19 pandemic crisis, which rapidly affect throughout the country. So every state and region announced and follow the health directives and orders strictly, based on the fact that people must not go outside or travel if it is not important. Myanmar Railways is currently going on providing rail service with at least each train on 6 vital railroad sections, but the remaining trains have been stopped from running. This is because the number of the passengers remarkably are on the decrease, and the travels are restricted in line with the directives issued by the National Level Central Committee on Prevention, Control and Treatment of COVID-19. Uzolwin, Deputy General Manager of Traffic Number 7 Division, Yangon, Myanmar Railway said.
ဒီရထားတွေမှာเนาะကျွန်တော်တို့အဓိကဒီပြည်သူတွေရဲ့စာအုပ်နေစားတောက်ကုန်လုပ်တွေကိုအဓိကဖြစ်တဲ့ကုန်စည်ပို့ဆောင်မှုလုပ်အောင်เนาะအဆင်ပြေအောင်လဲကျွန်တော်တို့စီစဉ်ပေးထားပါတယ်
In these trains, we are mainly planning to be able to transport the commodities, the essential thing for the public. We are mainly providing rail service with at least each train on 6 vital rail sections, such as Yangon-Mandalay, Mandalay-Mijina, Yangon-Pye, Naypyidaw-Chao, Patain-Changin, and Mandalay-Lasho. And we already announced the updated schedule of the trains in the respective stations for the public. The main purpose is to maintain the commodity flow. Since most of the crops entering Yangon come from Bago region, postal and parcel trains are also running on Yangon-Pye Railroad section. For the circular trains, we are providing circular train services for the people of Yangon to be able to reach the destinations on time during office hours. Our Ministry of Transport and Communications and the headquarters of Yangon Railways will keep on providing the rail service in accordance with the health guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health and Sports.
Number 3 up and number 4 down trains are running on Yangon-Mandalay Railroad section, one of the 6 key ones. Number 41 up and number 42 down trains on Mandalay-Mijina Railroad section. Number 63 up and number 64 down trains on Yangon-Pye Railroad section. Number 101 up and number 102 down trains on Naypyidaw-Chao Railroad section. Number 105 up and number 106 down trains on Patain-Changin Railroad section. And number 131 up and number 132 down trains on Mandalay-Lasho Railroad section, which is carrying most returnees from abroad via the border. Moreover, the runs of circular trains from Yangon-Loga Railroad section, Yangon-To-Jangalei-Yuataji Railroad section, and Yangon-Mingaladong Railroad section have been reduced, but the circular trains are running mainly during office hours for ensuring the convenience and comfort of the passengers. U Tang Thai, Chief Station Master of Yangon Railway Station, said.
The numbers of passengers for circular train relatively decrease. We're running our trains depending upon increasing number or decreasing number of passengers. There are still some passengers who are working for the company and other departments in this period, although most people are staying at home. That's why we are providing services for those who need to ride our trains in every rush hour. We are warning the passengers to know the ways how to prevent the disease by using loudspeakers as the resurgence is spreading faster than the earlier stage. And we are also performing all the checks while preventing ourselves from the virus risks. People are requested to wear masks properly, but not to wear in the wrong way by hanging masks in their chins when they take the trains. This is a must in performing the preventative measures against COVID-19.
Myanmar Railways has made the plans for transporting the passengers by using circular trains. Normally, 54 circular trains are running per day, but now only 30 trains are running currently as 24 are temporarily stopped from running. There are 2 runs for morning and 2 runs for evening on Yangon Hluttaw Railroad section, the same numbers on Yangon Megaladong Railroad section, and the same numbers on Yangon Tojangale Yuadaji Railroad section. There are 4 circular trains running clockwise and anti-clockwise directions. If necessary, Myanmar Railways will be in preparation for extending circular train service.
That's a report on Myanmar Railway places special attentions to commodity flow as express and circular services reduced. As the COVID-19 impact has been gradually scaling in the forms of restrictions over travel and logistic business, with certain transportation difficulties. In that regard, the officials from the respective ministries and associations were trying to avoid the shortage of goods amid COVID-19, and Waterway becomes one of the potential solutions to mainly focus on.
Not only roads, but also waterways are being locally used to avoid the shortage of goods amid COVID-19. After the COVID-19 has come to Myanmar, Yangon became the worst affected region. But later, Rakhine State became the most suffered region according to the statistics on 30th August. Then the resurgence occurred in most of the areas, including Yangon, other divisions and states. So the officials from the respective ministries and associations were trying to avoid the shortage of goods amid COVID-19. It was learned that State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi helped with the smooth and secure flow of commodities for ensuring that the public should not fear for shortage of commodity, as the restrictions on entry of states and regions, including Rakhine, Magwe, Bago and Ayawadi were imposed because the virus can rapidly spread. The plans for collecting rations for the people have been made in advance, and the 5 categories of dry rations have been delivered to the people since the previous danger. The Department of Consumer Affairs Department under the Ministry of Commerce delivered 250 tons of rice and 250 tons of edible oil to the people residing in Rakhine State by means of Waterway. Uye Tonai, Director of Department of Consumer Affairs Ministry of Commerce said.
Our department's first priority is distributing foods for people to prevent from food shortage when COVID-19 occurs. It's known to all that when COVID-19 resurgence happened in Rakhine State, the authorities instructed us to distribute 250 tons of edible oil and 250 tons of rice to Rakhine. As soon as we were instructed to send those, we shipped it to Rakhine as Myanmar Maritime Affairs Department arranged the ship. And our ministry is ready to give a hand as needed. There are also plans to provide foods if people are in need with the instruction of authorities. As we bought those with the state budget, we gave those to people free of charge. That's no problem due to cooperation with other departments despite weather conditions. We couldn't load rice because it rained so hard at that time and we only loaded the edible oil. Despite rains, we had to load edible oil till the rain stopped. We loaded rice. The problem is rice and it needs to be getting wet by its nature. The workers loaded the rice bags and edible oil containers regardless of the rain or sun.
Yangon region, which is the main driver of Myanmar's economy, is now trying to maintain an uninterrupted flow of goods to other states and regions, and coastal vessels carrying goods to Rakhine State have been permitted to berth in the middle of the Yangon River since 2nd September. To prevent the spread of the COVID-19. The virus is being tested at the port of Bagaya in Jiminai Township in collaboration with the Regional Public Health Department in accordance with the rules and regulations. Only when they show no positive for the virus, they are allowed berthing and loading and unloading at the jetty. Wu Yan'an, head of office of Myanmar Coastal Freight Forwarders Association, said.
We cannot give permissions well. When a ship arrives at the port, we have to inform to the general administrator and COVID committee. For example, the ship is not allowed to land after informing in Baguia, but they allow the berthing temporarily when the COVID committee comes to check. The sailors are not allowed to set the land. After checking, the ship has to set the anchors in the middle of the water. If the result comes out and a person is infected, they take that person and the rest crews, and the ships are allowed to berth to load and unloading goods. However, before the loading and unloading the freights, the sailors have to open the hatches and they have to go to the back room and are not allowed to go out to avoid contacts with the stevedores. When the stevedores have done their jobs, the committee sanitizes the whole ship. Then the sailors are allowed to come out. The sailors on board are not allowed to set the land, neither in Yangon nor in Sidui like they used to do, but not now. There are a bit of problems that some sailors who do not understand the rules landed and went back home. Then the police came after them and they got arrested. That happened only once. We told about this to the owners and the representatives.
တန်တိုင်းတော့အကုန်သိအောင်ပုံလုပ်တာသူကိုယ်စလေတွေပြောတာဘိုင်ရှင်တွေလည်းပြောတာပြဿနာသိမရှိဘူး
During this month, the ships preparing to depart to Sidwe, Rakhine, namely Srinagar, Thawara Mitta, Sri Tarapu, Jeton Ao, Ao Yadana 2, Sri Sipyo, and Torwin Yadana are waiting for the permissions by doing medical examinations according to the health guidelines.
That's a report on Waterway becomes main focus to avoid shortage of goods amid COVID-19. And that's all we have for today's report. And it's time to check on some international news here on Myanmar Today. Japan's chief cabinet secretary Yoshihide Suga won the Liberal Democratic Party's leadership election on Monday and will ultimately be Japan's new leader, replacing outgoing Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The winner of the LDP race is almost certain to be elected Prime Minister in a parliamentary vote on Wednesday because of the LDP's majority in the lower house. Suga will serve out Abe's term as a party leader through September 2021. Under normal circumstances, the top leader of the LDP would be chosen with diet members belonging to the party and rank-and-file members holding 394 votes each. Abe, Japan's longest-serving premier, said last month he would quit due to ill health, ending a nearly 8-year term. An election is not due until October next year, but the LDP is riding on a surge of support, and Suga will be keen to cement his leadership with a public mandate in Japan. An evacuation order was issued Sunday morning for residents in parts of the city of Arcadia in Southern California, U.S., as a massive wildfire is burning closer to the populated communities. Warnings of low moisture and strong winds that could fan the flames added urgency to the battle. The so-called red flags warning stretched from hard-hit southern Oregon to northern California and extended through Monday evening. Reports indicate that at least 33 people have been killed in the wildfire raging from California to Washington state. Authorities said the historic blazes have killed 10 people in Oregon, 22 in California, and at least one person in Washington state. Nearly all the dozens of people reported missing after a devastating blaze in southern Oregon have been accounted for. The United Nations Support Mission in Libya, UNSMIL, on Sunday expressed concern over reports of excessive use of force against demonstrators in East Libyan city. The UNSMIL said in a statement, quote, UNSMIL expresses grave concern regarding reports that one civilian was killed, 3 were injured, and a number of other demonstrators were arrested on 12 September following the reported excessive use of force by Eastern authorities against peaceful demonstrators in the city of Al-Marj. Protests broke out in a number of cities in eastern Libya against lack of basic services, mainly electricity, healthcare, and funds in local banks. The eastern-based government of Libya, headed by Abdullah El-Thani, on Sunday presented its registration to Eastern-based House of Representatives Parliament following 3 days of protest in eastern Libya. Protests broke out in a number of cities in eastern Libya against lack of basic services, mainly electricity, healthcare, and funds in local banks. The eastern-based government of Libya, headed by Abdullah El-Thani, on Sunday presented its resignation to the eastern-based House of Representatives Parliament following 3 days of protest in eastern Libya. And that's all we have for today. Thank you very much for joining me on Myanmar Today. I'm Michelle. Have a good day. I'll see you next time.